My name is Patrick Nolan. I'm an attorney licensed in the state of Missouri. This is Pat Talks Law.
He's going to share a little bit about the impending tsunami, the impact of medical marijuana on Missouri law and life. Please welcome Patrick Nolan.
Thank you. Well, coming from the Kirksville North Star Club, it's almost kind of like one of your kids coming home. I didn't bring laundry or ask for money, so I hope you're going to be a little happy about that. You know, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about this, because this is something, and I think Tsunami is going to adequately describe how the medical marijuana is going to impact Missouri. We are seeing what is going to be a sea change in how our legislation is, and really how a lot of factors that affect all of you are going to take place. Tsunami, for those of you who don't know, I grew up on the coast. My pop was in the Coast Guard, so I was a military brat, and I spent most of my very young years on the coast. And tsunami is something we learned about early on. And the common parlance here in the U.S. is tidal wave, and that's not really accurate. A tsunami is a seismic wave. And there's a seismic shift in the ocean that causes a wave that will propagate across the ocean at speeds 30 to 110 miles an hour. And we don't really notice it while it's in the ocean. When you're standing on shore, the first thing you're going to see when a tidal wave is coming in is that the ocean is going to withdraw. The sea is just going to withdraw, and you're going to have a massive beach in front of you. Then you'll start hearing the roaring of the tide, and you'll see the wave coming in. That wave is going to come in, it's going to hit hard, it's going to hit 30 miles an hour, it's going to rise up according to its frequency, and as the ocean gets shallower coming to land, it will get higher. And then it's going to hit your buildings, it's going to hit the coastline, it's going to hit it hard. You're going to see flooding, you're going to see buildings shattered. And for those of you who remember the Indonesian tsunami a few years ago, it's going to hit. After that first wave, there's a second wave, and a third wave, and the fourth wave. You'll have a series that come in. A tsunami isn't a single tidal wave. There's a series of them, and we're going to see that. Now, we also have noticed when we have a tsunami. Those of us who have lived on the coast, we know that we have warning centers that will tell us when there's been a seismic event in the ocean. You need to be ready, there could be a tsunami. There are wave trackers in the ocean that will tell us the heights of the waves and where they're coming. So you have a good idea when one is coming, so you can get out of the way. You can plan for it, you can prepare for it, and you can not be there when it hits. You don't have that choice to not be here when the medical marijuana actually hits the streets. You're here, you're stuck with it. So how are you going to plan for it? Well, we had our first warnings about this time last year when 3 ballot measures started being approved and circulated, and we knew medical marijuana was going to be on the ballot. You had your second warning, the wave triggers, when it was voted in on November 6th. Right now, the water is starting to recede from the beach. You know this is happening, it's coming, and it is going to impact every area of Missouri law and life. Now, it's going to be the biggest change any of us in this room have ever seen in our state. We have an entire new industry that's rising up from the ground. We've got a massive influx of money coming from outside the state and money from inside the state that's going to grow this. Now, the areas going to be impacted, and I made a list just to make sure I didn't forget any, and I'm going to forget a lot despite the list. Employment law, landlord-tenant law, contract law, criminal law, family law, juvenile law, real estate law, administrative law, federal preemption, federal constitutional law, financial law, and municipal law. Okay? We do not have the time to go into any of those in depth to adequately discuss it. I'm going to pick a few, and I'm just going to go forward on a few of them, and we'll talk about a few because it's going to be fun. And I saw Marty, and I didn't even mention education law. That's going to be huge too. We have 2 schools here. And I'm going to start with that one since I left it off the list. Here we have Truman University. One thing we know is that schools are drug-free campuses. You cannot have drugs on campus. Illegal drugs. Marijuana is a Schedule I drug. For the medical students, no doctor can prescribe marijuana in the United States. Our medical marijuana cards are signed off by doctors. They're not prescribing marijuana. They're signing off that the patient's medical conditions meet the criteria laid out in statute. That's all. So the people that have a medical marijuana card are not going to have a prescription for this. That's a big key. So a place like Truman is going to be caught in a bind. The students coming in that have medical marijuana cards are going to want to keep their medical marijuana. Truman, being a state university, is also bound to follow the Missouri Constitution, which was amended to allow for medical marijuana. So a university's got to make a decision, and this isn't the first place that this has happened. Other universities, California, Oregon, Washington, Colorado, for the Big Four, have all gone through this. Truman may well wind up having to make some adjustments to allow underclassmen who have medical marijuana cards to live off campus, because they can't have it in their dorm room. Obviously, they're not going to be allowed to use it on campus. So we're going to see some kind of adjustment there, and the Missouri University system across the board is going to have to figure out how they're going to handle this. Additionally, that's going to impact activities, scholarships. There is going to be a lot of impact throughout education law because of this. Coming down to employment law, a lot of us here own businesses, manage businesses, we work with employees. Now, let me just stop for a second. If you have a business where you have a lot of labor, where you have people that are doing labor, they're doing jobs where they might be able to get hurt. I'm certain somebody in here has such a business. When you have an injury on the job, your insurance company, one of the first things they want is a drug test. They want to make sure that the person wasn't under the influence of something when that injury occurred. We do not have any way of testing for intoxication of marijuana. We can't do it. There's no way for us to test somebody and say that they were under the influence of marijuana at 2 p.m. on Wednesday. We don't have a blood test. We don't have a breath test. There's no current way to do that. We can do a urine test. We can do a blood test. We can find that they've used marijuana sometime within the last 30 to 45 days. We can even narrow it down to more precise tests. But we cannot say, as a matter of fact or matter of law, that person was intoxicated by marijuana at 2 o'clock. So that's going to pose a problem. The predictions are 30% of the labor pool in Missouri are going to have medical marijuana cards. Numbers I checked before I came, as of February, we had 3.2% unemployment in February. So you're going to have a crunch when it comes to finding employees that are going to test clean. 30% of our labor pool is going to mean that a lot of us are going to have to make decisions regarding potential employees. Are we going to allow marijuana users to be employees that we didn't before? Okay. For some businesses, I'm going to pick on those of you that are at the hospital now. You don't allow them now. You're not going to allow them in the future. I understand. You have to meet those requirements. But for other employers in the community, and I'm going to pick on Kraft, they already have problems meeting full staffing. What is Kraft going to do in this situation? Employers in the state of Missouri that have government contracts are going to have issues. And I'm not talking about a Missouri contract, I'm talking about a federal government contract. Marijuana is still illegal federally. You could run into an issue where that employer has to meet a federal drug-free workplace requirement and comply with the Missouri law that allows people to have medical marijuana. We're going to see a lot of litigation, and it's going to be expensive for employers. It is going to happen. Along with that, just as a general across the board, you're going to see an increase in your insurance rates. You're going to see your insurance for your businesses go up because we're not going to be able to exclude somebody that has marijuana in their system. We're not going to be able to get that precise when there are accidents. You're probably going to see an increase in workman's comp, you're going to see an increase in general liability insurance. This is going to happen. And it's something that you have to plan for. Now, when it comes to landlord-tenant law, I own rental properties. I know a lot of you here do. And I know we have people that are going to be tenants, and are tenants here. With your rental properties, home cultivation is allowed under the new constitutional provisions of our medical marijuana. A person will be able to get the medical marijuana cultivation card. It costs $100, and they'll be able to grow marijuana at home. The question for you as a landlord is, are you going to want to go in your rental property and find out that they've turned a room of your house into a grow facility? Whether you like marijuana, dislike marijuana, support it, think it's going to be good for people that need it health-wise, marijuana has an aroma. That aroma is going to be hard to get out of your walls when people are done. So you're going to have to walk that line. Are you still going to be able to get an eviction, and a speedy eviction, expedited for a person that has illegal drugs in the home? Well, medical marijuana will be an exception to the illegal drugs. However, it's not an exception federally. There's been some debate as to whether or not allowing that is going to cause issues with your federal home loan that's backed by the federal government. I don't think so. I don't see anything there that I've seen that's allowed to yank your loan. But there are going to be issues. For the tenants, can a landlord bar you from having or using medical marijuana in your home? You know, you've rented it, can a landlord stop you? These are issues that are going to be worked out. They're going to have to be worked out by contract. They're going to have to be worked out. We won't have medical marijuana in the street in Missouri probably till summer of 2020. Their employees will not, the application for the employee identification card will not open until February 15th, 2020. Then the state will improve the employees. They'll come back and do a final check on the facility, make sure that everyone is certified and good to go, and that the facility meets all the requirements. Then they're going to have growth. And lead us into the next part I want to talk about, criminal law. I do criminal defense work, and drugs are the #1 driver of criminal defense. You know, here in Adair County, you know, they file more than 1,000 cases a year. A very large number of those relate to drugs. I'd say more than 50% are, or probably more than 70% are drug related. And I'm just pulling that percentage out of the air from experience. I haven't gone and counted them, so please don't hold me to that exact number. What that means is some crime is motivated by drugs. It's somebody who was under the influence and did something, somebody got caught possessing drugs, it's somebody that was dealing drugs, trafficking drugs, and marijuana is one of those, and not by only means the only one. So that's going to impact how we do our criminal law. Right now, if a police officer stops a car, and he comes up and he smells marijuana, he has what's called reasonable suspicion to search that vehicle on the basis of the smell of marijuana. I've argued that that will no longer apply. As a medical marijuana state, the smell of marijuana is not going to be enough to search a car. The officer is going to have to ask additional questions. And there's going to be a training and a lag time for law enforcement. If they don't start training this now, they're not going to be ready when we have medical marijuana in the street. Officers are going to make mistakes, and some are going to be big mistakes. We will have the same problems that Colorado, Washington, Oregon, California, and the other medical marijuana states have. We have no way to test for intoxication, current intoxication. I can say I have not lost a DWI drug case where the drug is marijuana as a defense attorney. And that's because you cannot prove that the person is under the influence of marijuana at the time of the stop. We don't have a test. Our science hasn't caught up. Hopefully we can get a chemist that will create something. or some of our fine engineers, but that's one of the problems we have. We don't have the systems to put in place for that protection. That's going to impact all of us. It's going to impact your insurance rates. You don't use medical marijuana. It is going to impact your insurance rates. Insurance is going to go up like it has in Colorado, Washington, Oregon, California. I kind of think we pay nothing for our insurance. That's an aside. You know, we're going to see issues with municipal law. And I got to tell you, I've talked about the bad. Let's talk about some of the good. Medical marijuana is going to bring a lot of money in to Missouri and into the city. There will be a dispensary that will be established probably in the greater Kirksville area. It doesn't make sense to go anywhere else in this area. Kirksville is the hub. That will happen. If it happens in town, the sales tax revenue from that dispensary is going to bring a lot of money into Kirksville's coffers. We will also see a decrease, statistically, in marijuana-related crime. We've seen that through the other states. Now, we can talk about different statistics and how you look at them, but across the board, there is a decrease. There are also changes in crime. Marijuana has long been looked at as an entry drug. However, as an entry drug, it gets that because it's forbidden. Medical marijuana is not going to have that same impact as an entry drug as it did as a straight illegal drug. It's going to lose some of the romance. So, and please, I mean, if you have questions, holler out. I'd love to answer questions. But these are issues that are going to impact us. They're going to impact us a lot. They're going to change every aspect of Missouri life. When we talk about real estate law, can somebody grow on your property? What if they put a cultivation facility next door to your farm? If someone plants 2,800 marijuana plants next door to your farm, is that going to impact your quality of life? Is it going to change your cattle? Is it going to change the way that you operate your farm? It might. You know, we've just gone through a whole debate over whether or not the state or the county commission is going to be able to regulate CAFOs. We're going to have that same question when it comes to marijuana facilities. Right now, we don't have any zoning in the county, and you know, Kirksville is rather modest compared to the East and West Coast. So there's going to be a lot there that we'll be able to look at. And I got to tell you, this is just full employment for lawyers. You know, some of you are looking at it with dread. Lawyers, we're looking at this as, you know, I'm going to pay off my house, possibly get a new car. Because there's going to be a lot of litigation. And Marty's laughing. So that's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. We need to clarify the laws, but in the process of clarifying laws, and this is something that we overlook all the time, when there are court cases, there are real people that are in that courtroom, and they're going through something that's usually not pleasant. I haven't met anyone that has come to my office and said, please, I want to go to court for something. You know, nobody wants that. It's expensive, it's unpleasant, you have to deal with people you don't like in a situation you're not comfortable. Especially business owners, you have other things you want to do. You definitely don't want to play in court. So those are some of the basic things, and you know, I see some of the wheels turning. It is not all negative. Medical marijuana is going to help a lot of people. There are a lot of people that are suffering from illnesses that are going to benefit. The joint pain. Right now we have CBD oil that's out and people are using it. You know, there are a lot of positive aspects to marijuana. Someone who's suffering from cancer, you know, my grandmother, the harsh chemicals that they were giving her when she was dying from cancer, you know, she had much better days when one of my aunts bought weed and smuggled it into her in Massachusetts. It is outside the statute of limitations, I can say that, I throw my aunt under the bus. But, you know, so There is some experience, and a lot of us know people who either have used marijuana for such a situation or know someone that has. So please don't take this talk as a negative on medical marijuana in itself. It isn't. I'm more addressing that we've passed a constitutional amendment, we've changed the Missouri Constitution, and we have absolutely no idea how that's going to impact everyday life. If anything, it might be a statement on why we probably shouldn't move to public ballot constitutional changes right away. Yes, sir.
The consumption of cannabidiol, or CBD, that's a neurological agent, not a hallucinogenic one. The THC, tetrahydro, whatever that stands for, that's the hallucinogenic portion of the hemp plant or the marijuana plant. There are different plants that produce more or less. There is no medical test to distinguish whether consumption has been from CBD or THC.
With the caveat that I'm not a chemist or or that area, my knowledge is from defending people that are charged with these things.
Yeah.
The blood test checked for the cannabinoids in the blood, and they see the same thing in the urine. There's not really a distinction between the two. I've represented a person who tested positive for marijuana in a juvenile case, and we went and clients swore they weren't smoking marijuana. I don't think any of us believed that client. I didn't. And then we sent her out to the lab, tested urine, and the cannabinoids were very, very high. The numbers were in the, I think it was 251, which is ridiculously high. And of course, in talking to her, she disclosed that she was using CBD oil. She had been told by a counselor that CBD oil was safe and wouldn't test positive, which may be the case if you use a little bit of it. But CBD oil in itself will show up the same as marijuana in a test, as far as I know. I don't. There may be tests that can be done that will that can separate the two of them out. But if there is, I'm sure that's a more expensive test than we typically do for a drug test. As far as a typical urine dip test, we're not going to be able to tell the difference. Yes, sir.
As you said, the federal government has established marijuana as a Schedule I drug, which means it has no legal use. Now, all those states, and of course federal law trumps state law. So all those states that made marijuana legal is technically in violation of federal law. And I have read nowhere that anybody's trying to get that schedule changed, which it shouldn't be changed.
Well, there are a couple points. Let me unpack. First part is Schedule 1. And yes, it is Schedule 1, and there's no redeeming. It's on the same level as heroin. The government is wrong. The government is wrong on that. There are studies that have been done, studies, the VA has attempted to do studies regarding marijuana and treatment of PTSD. And clearly the states have taken initiative to say that the federal government is wrong on that. As for the federal preemption and whether or not the federal banning and outlaw of marijuana, how that applies to the states, that's a completely different constitutional question. And that's one where federal law covers federal territory. It covers interstate commerce, the Interstate Commerce Clause. But a state government can have different laws from the federal government. When I was in the military, we used to say you could add to regulation, but you couldn't detract. That's not really the case in federal and state laws. We have shifted over the years to a point where we're applying federal law to the states constantly. However, there's been a pushback in the last 15, 20 years, pretty significant pushback under the 10th Amendment, pointing out that the federal government has exceeded its authority and the states have the authority for most of this. You know, I'm not going to get into the details or cite cases. It's not going to mean anything to anybody here except for one or two legal wonks, which probably Marty and myself. But the essence of that is right now we have 33 states that have told the federal government you're wrong. We've licensed and approved medical marijuana in our state. We are going to see medical marijuana at least be legalized on the federal level, probably before we fully decriminalize in Missouri, but I've seen not anymore. Hemp is legal nationally, and hemp is legal in the state of Missouri. We are working out the regulations, and there are regulations for that. But yes, we do have legal hemp cultivation now. And that poses a secondary problem for our law enforcement. There are very few of us that are going to be able to look at hemp and marijuana in a bag and tell the difference. Yes, sir.
Some of the legal issues you've talked about affecting Missouri with the passage of this. My question is, in those states that have not only approved medical marijuana use, but just recreational use as well, are those legal issues less complicated, less complex, or are they the same?
Anywhere you can put lawyers in the courtroom, the legal issue is not going to get less complex. Our job is to try and find the gray area for our clients. So if the lawyer's creative and they're doing their job well, they're going to try and make a simple issue complex so they can get their client what they want. It's probably not a level of truth. They might throw me out of the club for saying that, but the issues are still rather complex. Right now in Congress, the Safe Banking Act has passed out of committee. They're looking at it. That's going to allow banks and FDIC insured banks to handle marijuana-related money in the states that approve marijuana. Right now it's a cash business. You can't access the banking system. You can't use credit cards. They can't deposit it. These companies are dealing in cash. They have a lot of cash. And there is an increase in crime directly related to that. You know, frankly, if I was going to be a criminal and go out and rob somebody and had my choice between a bank and a marijuana facility in California, I'm going to hit the marijuana facility. They got more cash, and I'm not going to do federal time. So that's an issue, and that's one that's being worked on. There isn't a really good answer for that. I've been talking with a lawyer friend of mine who does bank law to see if there might be a way around that in Missouri with a state chartered bank. And I haven't gotten a good answer. So the issues are complex, they're remaining complex. Those states are finding workarounds. However, we have a different case than those states. Those states passed laws. We didn't pass a law in Missouri that can be changed to fit the situation. We amended our Constitution. So if we want to make a change to the medical marijuana law as it is, we have to amend the Constitution. It is a much, much more difficult process. So that's going to be a problem for us. We have to work with what we have, and it's going to be difficult. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I have two questions. First of all, what neighboring states to Missouri are
Neighboring states to Missouri? Iowa, Illinois, Arkansas.
They already have this.
They have medical marijuana in those three states.
Okay.
Yes.
The second question is, are you available to speak to other groups like this?
Sure. I'd be happy to. I think that we need to know what's facing us so that we can plan for it. Not saying that it's a good thing or a bad thing, but you know, business people, we plan 3 to 5 years out. You have to. And there's going to be some big changes in the next 3 to 5 years. I'm sorry, sir, you had a question?
Can you speak to the policy decision on if there's a dispenser which is regulated, why people are allowed to cultivate on their own? and grow their own outside of the confines of the control area.
Okay. It wasn't a policy decision. That was a decision made when the initial amendments were proposed. We had 3 different marijuana amendments on the November 6th ballot. Okay. The home cultivation on the amendment 2 that won was there because they want to try and get similar to a California or an Oregon where you can grow at home with a 6-plant limit. Some of the issues we're going to have with that is the way that was written. So you'll be able to cultivate at home your 6 flowering plants. That's going to be 12 plants total. They tell me you have to have their marijuana plants are male and female. I'll tell you, I'm not a farmer. I'm not an agriculture guy. I have no clue. So that's going to be 12 plants so they can have the 6 flowering plants from what I've been told. What that means is they're going to have a hydroponic growth facility at home. It's going to be in one of the rooms. They will not be able to grow until they have licensed seed to purchase. They can't just pick up some seed in Colorado and come back here and plant. It's got to be legal seed, and we'll have a seed to sale tracking system. Every marijuana seed at the cultivation facility is accounted for. It grows or it doesn't, or it's culled or it doesn't. Every gram of the plant material will be accounted for, from the fibers and stalks, which will be sent out probably to paper or other clothing facilities, to the meal from the crushed seeds that aren't retained, the oils that are pressed out, which, by the way, is a flaw in our current law. Marijuana oil in Missouri is legal. CBD oil has limitations. But marijuana oil, we can crush the oil out. That's legal because it's not defined as marijuana under our current statute. It's a huge loophole. I just want a case on it. It's a problem. We've made mistakes in the way we've written laws. And that's in part because we don't have many lawyers in Jeff City. We have very few lawyers that are actually representatives and senators. We need to have more lawyers in the process. Yes, sir.
We have a son that's in administration in middle school in a community just north of Denton, Colorado. And he tells us that every day there is marijuana taken away from 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade students in the school that he's in. And he will ask, where'd you get this product from my parents out of their medicine cabinet? And these children are selling that in schools. And I hope that doesn't happen in the state of Missouri. Of course, marijuana in Colorado has been legal for quite some time. It did. Back when it was one of the first states, first or second, I don't know. It's either Colorado or California. I don't recall which. But it is a very serious problem when it cannot be controlled.
We can't control it now. We haven't been able to control marijuana at any time. If we consider the war on drug as an actual war, it would be the only one the United States has ever gotten its ass thoroughly kicked in. We have no restrictions or abilities to stop drugs in the United States. And policy-wise, from federal government down to state government, we truly have no desire to. If we did, we would do more. We would do more in treatment. We would do more in prevention. We would do more in education. And we don't do that. Marijuana, drugs, and drugs in the criminal process is a huge moneymaker all the way up through the legal system. Law enforcement, lawyers, courts, judges, we're supporting an entire system on drug money. And we as a society don't have any interest in stopping that. We do have an interest in keeping it illegal to protect it, though. There are drugs in our schools. I have no doubt that if we went out to Kirksville right now, even in the elementary schools, we would find drugs in there. They're there. Now, you're going to have more access in a place like Colorado that has full legalization, and I have no doubt that kids are bringing stuff in, no doubt. Colorado doesn't have the controls. Here in Missouri, with our seed-to-sale tracking that we will have, it's going to be that much more difficult. If a kid comes in and they have drugs from a parent's stash, there are actually penalties for allowing someone else to access that. Is it going to happen? Yes. Clearly. We have no real way to stop that. Kids are going into parents' medicine cabinets now and taking OxyContin and Percocet and other drugs. So I wish I could say that that's not going to happen. It is. We have to focus on making that undesirable as opposed to trying to make it unavailable, which we failed at. So that's not really a positive way to end. Is there another question?
We need to stop.
Okay, well, we need to stop. I was told to leave.